Entitled aunt achieves ultra greed status and attempts to steal vehicles willed to nephew. Little backstory. My aunt has always had a greedy streak ever since I was a kid. She's the type of person that will yell at a store employee because something that was advertised isn't in stock or not at the particular store, or not on sale and has been banned from entering multiple stores. When my grandmother was on her deathbed, my aunt had talked her way into getting my grandmother to sign her as an executor of the will, and ended up taking everything and anything that had the most value. Fast forward. My uncle was my best friend. I always looked up to him as a kid. He was a truck driver, so he'd be gone for a long time, and I remember one summer, he even took me with him on the road. But sadly, my uncle had cancer, and while he was in the hospital, my aunt had tried to get him to assign her as an executor of his will. But since he was quick to pick up on what happened when my grandmother passed away, he hired a professional estate lawyer that would take care of everything. If you can imagine, my aunt was not very happy and was quick to throw out a sob story of how offended she was that her brother couldn't entrust her with an important task. This went on for 2 weeks. Even on his last day in hospice, she still brought it up and was asked to leave by nurses. He passed away peacefully in 2011. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I quickly found out why my aunt was, so we were all asked to gather at my mom's home where the estate lawyer came to tell us who was getting what. So finally, my time came on the list and I was surprised to have anything willed to me. What did my uncle will to me? Why, his rig and car, of course. My uncle's rig is a 2008 Lone Star International, which was fully loaded. My uncle's car is a 66 Chevelle SS. My first thought was, what the hell am I going to do with the big rig? My aunt's first thought? Well, she didn't have a first thought. She just screamed and cussed at the lawyer, saying that I was too sick to have those things and didn't deserve them because I was his nephew and not his sister. The lawyer asked her to sit down, and he would get to her. When my aunt sat down, she looked at me and said, "You're giving me the title to both of those." To which I laughed and said, "In your dreams, maybe." The lawyer kept going down the list, and because my uncle was a legend, he put my aunt at the bottom of the list and said to the quote, "To my sister, I am leaving her my luckiest, most important dollar, because all present at this meeting will know she needs it most." And then was handed the dirtiest looking Canadian $1 coin, which was sealed in a block of acrylic. Myself, my dad, and my other uncles nearly wet ourselves laughing. My aunt, however, didn't find it that funny, and instead went into another tirade on how this was unfair and saying she didn't have anything to hold on that was his. The day passed, and then the nightmare began. My aunt would call over and over and over asking about the truck, wanting to buy the car, if I was going to sell the truck, if I was going to sell the car, all to which I said no. Things got worse when my aunt started saying that she wanted her car, and that she had someone that wanted to buy our truck. At this point, I got extremely irritated and said that it's not your car, it's my car, and my car is staying with me, and it's not our truck, it's my truck, and no one is buying it. A week later, I woke up and heard something, so I went to investigate, and there was a tow truck in the driveway. I quickly told the tow truck driver, who was a friend of my aunt, that if he so much as put a hand on that Chevelle, I would have him arrested for trespassing and grand theft, and then proceeded to call the police. Cops showed up, and I told the police officer my side of the story. Then he went to my aunt, and the conversation went like this. "Ma'am, can you tell me, is this your car?"
"Yes, it is. He just won't give it to me."
"Ma'am, do you have the title of the vehicle?"
"No, I do not. He won't give that to me."
"Well, ma'am, I looked at the registration and the title of the vehicle, and he is listed as the owner of the vehicle. That vehicle is legally not yours, and having it towed could land you and your friend prison time for auto theft."
"Well, I think I'm the one who should get the car because he can't even take care of himself."
"Ma'am, it doesn't matter what you think. What matters is legal ownership, which you do not have." A week later, my aunt had attempted to take me to court for the car, which the case wasn't even put before a judge. My aunt refiled the claim again, it went to court, and once I provided a copy of the will, title, and registration, the judgment went in my favor, and my aunt was forced to pay my court costs after dismissing my aunt's claim with prejudice, meaning she can never file that lawsuit again. Then tragedy struck again. This time, a great uncle passed away. I was on the will. Again. Can you guess what was left to me? A new car! My great uncle's 1967 Chevy Impala SS, which he restored himself. My great aunt, his widow, was thrilled that I got it, but the mood was quickly soured when she realized that my entitled aunt, her niece, really was not thrilled that I got it. This time she stepped it up a notch and skipped the screaming and complaining and instead went to scheming. 2 days after I took possession of the Impala, She rented not just one flatbed, but 2 flatbeds. She managed to get the Impala onto the flatbed and sped off, leaving her boyfriend behind, attempting to get the Chevelle on his flatbed as quickly as he could while I stood by on the phone with the police. Police quickly caught up with my aunt and arrested. Her boyfriend was arrested in my driveway and soiled himself in the process. Her and her boyfriend both were hit for 2 counts of motor vehicle theft. Both were charged and found guilty and sentenced to 2 years and 2 days in jail. End points. I haven't spoken to or heard from my aunt since she got out of prison, and I have no desire to. Before she was released from jail, I filed a restraining order against her and has stood since then. But the last I heard, she is still screaming at store employees, complaining about money, and asking about me and the vehicles. I still am the owner of all 3 vehicles, the Chevelle, the Impala, and the Lone Star International, and don't plan on selling any of them. I repair and build computers for a living, but more and more, I've been getting into auto repair as a hobby. As I do live in Canada, I do not drive the Impala or Chevelle during winter months, but every year I always take my great aunt, who is now 96 years old, to A&W to get a burger, onion rings, and an ice cold root beer in the Impala, which is something my great uncle did for her since he got the Impala in 1970. A very good friend of my uncle's, whom now owns a business, actually rents the Lone Star International from me. He promised me that he would not get a single scratch or spot of rust on any single part of it, and to this day that Lone Star looks factory new and has been all over the world. The guy that rents the truck even continued doing a little tradition my uncle did, which was to get a decal on the truck of the state, province, territory flag of the places the truck has visited. It currently has 31 state decals and 3 province decals on it. My great aunt isn't in great health, and she has told me that she put me in her will so that I will get her cars, which are 2 of my great uncle's first cars, originally left to her in the will, which are a 1958 Chevy Impala and a 1957 Plymouth Belvedere Fury, which is my favorite car. I saw the movie Christine when I was 6 years old in 1996. Ever since, I loved the car, because she knows that I will take care of it and park it right beside the 67 Impala SS. I can already imagine the fallout that I'm going to get for that, so there may even be another post, though I really do hope there is not. Thank you for reading, and I hope you have a great day. Evening. Let's check and see what the community thinks. Just an old baby boomer says, if the restraining order is still in force, the greedy witch will find herself back in jail if she tries to start trouble with you again. Please update me. Thanks. History Nerdiest chimes in, bravo to your family for not putting up with your EA's BS, and for recognizing the good person you are. Enjoy your cars as much. Wow, this woman is persistent. I'll give her that. It's wild to think that she thought she had a case and took it to court, but ended up paying all the fees and without a vehicle, and then ended up going to jail. All over a few cars. That seems like such a waste of energy. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, OP. It's just unnecessary stress. More importantly, your uncle sure did get the last laugh with that dollar, though. I'm curious to know if your aunt has a will, or if she plans on living forever and collecting a graveyard of cars. Update. Entitled Aunt GA. Great Aunt. So, I'm not really sure how this is actually done or if I'm doing this right. I looked over everywhere and information is kind of limited, so I'll just jump into it. Quite a few things have changed. So to start, Great Aunt is doing much better medically, and she is looking forward to her 97th birthday. I was actually inspired to make this update because I just recently took her to our usual A&W trip, which she loved. Her mind was also blown that now A&W sells frozen root beer, which had me laughing for about 15 minutes straight because she couldn't understand why someone would want a block of root beer. I had to order one and show her that it's like an icy or a Slurpee from 7-Eleven. Turns out, before he passed away, my great-uncle was working on restoring his 1958 Nash Metro, which I think is moderately terrifying because if you crash, that steering column is going to go right through you, and you are going to go through whatever car you crash into, since that thing is a little tank. Great Aunt really doesn't want to hear about the Fury or the Nash anymore, so she gave me the title to the Fury. My cousin really wanted the Nash, which my aunt obliged him, and I'm not even disappointed because I think that thing is ugly and sin. EA found out about it and threw a fit. Was on her way to my house, but without me even knowing this took place, I was surprised to find out that my mom had actually called the police, and the police had called her, EA, to tell her that if she set foot on my property, then that would violate the protection order, and she would be charged, and so she had best stop the car, turn around, and head home. Well, she couldn't get the Plymouth Fury, but by golly, she was going to try to get the Nash Metro. My cousin had called me and told me that she actually went to his house, under the pretense of a pleasant visit, and said that the visit went nicely for maybe an hour, and then suddenly, the Gollum switch was flipped, and she started listing off reasons as to why she needs to give her the Nash. such as, when she was little, she would ride in the Nash. She deserved it. He wouldn't take care of it. Also, because he has a 66 Pontiac GTO that I have been trying to buy off of him for 7 years. It would be much safer at her place, despite the fact that he lives about 20 miles from where I live in the middle of nowhere. All of these did not faze my cousin, and instead he told her to get out of his house after citing the reason of how it was kinda his dad's car. He had to deal with her pestering him for around 7 months, and then he finally just blocked any form of contact with her. She hasn't tried anything since. Great Aunt then went on to sell the farm, which upset EA even more because that's one more thing she can't have, and it is even in the will that my cousin and I retain the vehicles at all times, and now my cousin gets the house in town, which was changed from EA to my cousin. And so the dust has settled now, and things are all good. Now some pretty good things have come out of this. So number one is when I found out that my mom was the one that called the police on my aunt, that led me to talk to my mom for the first time in 5 or 6 years, and now we are on speaking terms. I also have a much better relationship with my cousin since we were never really that close to each other to begin with, and he has blown away at the fact that I have a full-on machine shop in my property. So on weekends, we will be in the shop talking, and he has been helping me with my project. My project is, I found a Lincoln Continental MK3, and ever since I was a kid, it's been a dream to have the car from the movie. Well, the car. So we have started chopping the crap out of it and making everything by hand to get it looking perfect. The Impala, Chevelle, and Lone Star are all doing great. The Lone Star had a bit of a hiccup, and the entire transmission and engine needed to be replaced, but Lone Star actually said that the engine should have been replaced long ago, so that all got done and signed off on, along with a new hitch plate being installed on it. My uncle's friend still rents the Lone Star from me for his business, and he even got a custom decal put on the trailer for it for a Chicken Hawk. My uncle's nickname was Chicken Hawk, and now has 42 state decals on it, up from 31, and 6 provincial decals, up from 3. Me and my cousin both got invited to a car club because we were at a recent car show, and a friend of ours had recent dealings with this car club. They gave him some of the money needed to restore 1951 Studebaker Woody, and once the car was complete, they actually had taken him to court to get the car, which is now sits in their showroom. So me and my cousin asked them when our friend is going to get his Studebaker back, and then I said that I don't associate with people that have zero moral fiber, which are now working towards getting him his car back, since legally the people in the car club can't so much as sit in the car without our friend's permission. Since nothing was in writing, he has to pay the car club back, but won't get the car back until he has paid the car club because his lawyer was an idiot. But before I forget, EA has actually had to come out of retirement, and now both her and her boyfriend are forced to go back to work since they ran out of money pretty quick. As it turns out, having multiple homes and going on vacation 2 or 3 times a year drains your bank account pretty darn quick. So yeah, that's about it. 5 a.m., so it's time to get to work. Hope everyone out there has a good day or evening, and thank you for your time. Now let's get a couple comments from the community. First, Lucilda1125 says, "Wow, that's a great ending. You should update your will ASAP and encourage your cousin to do the same." Sonic X1027 says, "After reading your original post, I was happy that EA got what she deserves. She was definitely a Karen that wants your cars that your uncle gave to you in his will, and I'm willing to bet that she would have sold those machines for a quick buck." Ah yes, there's the motive. She just wanted to sell the vehicles so she could go on living La Vida Loca. She wanted to coast for her remaining years by selling people's precious treasures. It's disgusting behavior to take advantage of people during such a vulnerable time. I'm glad to hear she now has to work for the life she so desperately seeks. On a lighter note, way to go on a new hobby. What are your thoughts on the greedy little grub of an aunt? Do you have a similar family member? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on our lounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content in our channel, share that with us. We'd love to hear from you.